Today, women have achieved almost everything. They have the freedom to choose what to wear, where to work, who to associate with, and even decide whether or not to get married. In theory, this should be the pinnacle of fulfillment, the moment when they would finally be happy. But something went wrong. There has never been so much talk about freedom, and never have there been so many unhappy, anxious, and dissatisfied women. Why does this happen? Perhaps because the modern ideal of female happiness was not born from genuine desire, but from expectations that no one can live up to, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. If you want to understand what's behind this contradiction and see what no one has the courage to say, stay with me until the end, and subscribe to the channel now, because what comes next will make you rethink everything. The collapse of modern promises. For a long time, women were told they could have it all: a good job, a great love, children, freedom, beauty, success. It seemed like the perfect package of happiness. But no one told them what came with it. Wait, today, many people are trying to balance everything at the same time, like someone trying to hold several spinning plates without letting any of them fall. In the end, they end up exhausted. They want to be strong, but they also want to be cared for. They want to be free, but they also want to feel loved. They want to have time for themselves, but the world demands that they always be available, smiling, productive, impeccable. And when they realize they can't handle all these roles, guilt sets in. The feeling of failure is mixed with an emptiness that is difficult to explain. As if, even having everything, something was missing. But the cruelest thing is not tiredness. It's the invisible pattern that dictates what they must feel. Like must live and what must to wish. A pattern that imprisons even those who swear to be free. And that's precisely where the real problem begins. The one that almost no one dares to reveal. Before following, check if you have already left a like, and let's move on to the next topic. The dictatorship of happiness today. It is no longer necessary to arrest anyone to control them. It is enough to show them enough to make them want to be the same. Social media has become the new mirror of the world. There, everyone seems to live a perfect life. Travel, flawless bodies, relationships without arguments, constant smiles. But the problem is, the more she observes these reflections, the more distant she becomes from herself. The modern woman does not suffer from a lack of freedom. She suffers because she is surrounded by mirrors that lie. Every photo she sees becomes an invisible ruler. Why don't I look like that? Why doesn't my life look so good? What's wrong with me? And, without realizing it, she begins to measure her own happiness by the appearance of others. On the outside, he keeps smiling. Inside, you feel the weight of comparison, pressure, and the fear of not being enough. She tries to fit into an image that was never real, and when that image shatters, comes the most painful revelation. She never knew what she really wanted. But what happens when the search for acceptance becomes the sole purpose of life? This is where the next collapse is born, and it is even deeper. The void of girl power. For years, women have been told that true power lies in not being dependent on anyone, and they believed, they fought, conquered space, climbed steps that were previously forbidden. But along the way, something got lost. The independence that was supposed to liberate ended up becoming a new form of prison, one that weighs heavily but cannot be shown, because now they need to be strong all the time. They need to prove, every day, that they can handle everything on their own. And this burden is silent. On the outside, it looks like pride. Inside, it's tiredness, it's loneliness, it's the fear of letting my guard down and being judged for it. Power without purpose becomes a burden. Freedom without direction becomes emptiness. And it is this emptiness that so many women feel. Even after making it in life, deep down, what they desire most is not domination. It is connection. They want to be seen, understood, loved, without having to apologize for it. But in a world that glorifies strength and despises vulnerability, admitting this desire has become almost a sin, and it is precisely from this silence that the next conflict arises, one that reveals the highest emotional price of this false freedom. The war against nature itself. The modern woman's greatest battle is not against men, nor against the system. It is against herself. On the one hand, there is instinct, the desire to love, to connect, to build something true. On the other hand, there is the modern discourse that screams, you don't need anyone. Feeling is weakness, and depending is a step backward. And that's where the conflict arises. The body asks for affection, but the ego demands control. The heart seeks connection, but the mind says that this is making yourself too vulnerable. It's as if there are two voices inside her, one wanting to feel, the other telling her to shut up. In this struggle, many women end up trying to suffocate what would make them complete, believing they are being strong, when in fact, they are moving away from themselves. The result is predictable. The more they achieve, the emptier they feel, more power, less peace, more freedom, less connection. It's a silent war, fought every day, and the enemy isn't out there. It's in the mind, in the beliefs, in the ideas that promise liberation, but charge a high price for it. But what happens when this internal war reaches its limit, and the body begins to take its toll on repressed emotions? This is where the next stage arises, the one where the emptiness stops being emotional and turns into real pain. The invisible emotional prison from the outside, everything looks fine. Career, freedom, independence, travel, followers, but inside, the scene is different. A silent chaos that no one sees. Many women try to fill the void they feel with achievements. A new job, a new love, a new appearance. They seek approval on social media, applause, attention, but none of this lasts. Because what's really missing isn't something you buy or post. It's the emotional balance that's been lost along the way. They conquered the world, but lost the center. They exchanged peace for performance. And they live in a constant state of almost happiness, a feeling of always being one step away from something that never arrives. On the outside, independence, inside, loneliness. And the more they try to prove that they are fine, the further they move away from what would really do them good. The modern prison doesn't have bars. It has fake smiles, filters, and self-help phrases that don't cure anything. It is an emotional imprisonment so disguised that even those who are imprisoned believe they are free. But there is a limit to this game of appearances. And in the next topic, you will understand what happens when the mask of self-sufficiency finally begins to fall. Exhausted love. When partnership becomes performance in today's relationships, many couples no longer live love, they play roles within it. She feels she needs to prove that she is independent, that she doesn't need anyone. He believes he must always be the strong one, the impenetrable emotional provider, and so, the relationship ceases to be a refuge and becomes a testing ground. Instead of complicity, competition arises. Who gives in first? Who loves more? Who has control? Love becomes a silent power game, in which both parties leave exhausted, and no one truly wins. The modern couple lives connected by messages, but disconnected from the soul. They talk all the time, but rarely listen to each other. They sleep side by side, but emotionally they are miles apart. And when love becomes routine, affection begins to die in silence. Deep down, there is no lack of love. There is a lack of surrender. There is a lack of courage to be vulnerable, to admit that loving is taking a risk, and that true power is not in dominating the other, but in allowing yourself to feel. Bonus: love in times of armor. In the midst of so much search for freedom, success and power, love ended up becoming the most affected battlefield. Today, relationships have become a game of defense. Men and women enter into a relationship not to give themselves up, but to avoid getting hurt, each one using their own emotional armor. She, fearing being seen as dependent, hides her desire to be cared for. He, afraid of being rejected, pretends he feels nothing, and so, two hearts come together, but without actually touching. The modern couple talks about everything, except what really matters. Love is measured by replied messages, proof of affection and control disguised as interest. But the truth is that love does not survive where there is fear. And fear, today, is the new language of relationships. Deep down, they both want the same thing, to feel safe enough to let their guard down. But the world has taught us that vulnerability is weakness. And that is the biggest lie of all, because it is precisely when the armor falls that love truly begins. But what happens when two wounded hearts try to love without healing first? This is where the ultimate dilemma arises. The cycle that transforms love into a battlefield and freedom into shared solitude. Leave your opinion in the comments. I will respond to all comments. The truth that no one has the courage to say: women are not unhappy for lack of love, money, or beauty. They are unhappy because they live disconnected from their own essence. They were taught to win, but not to feel. Competing, but not understanding each other. And until the day they learn to look within and not without, they will continue to seek happiness in a mirror that only reflects emptiness. And in the next video, I'll show you why the modern woman is emotionally exhausted and how it affects today's relationships.